There's so many issues coming to a head for the U.S. economy right now. And then you have major challenges, for example, that are on picking up with increasing speed, challenges to the petrodollar system or the status of the U.S. as a global reserve currency.
I think there's a greater chance that this is intended than not, because now you find a villain, and when they dump the dollars and interest rates spike to high heaven, not only do you blow up the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market, but you blow up the over-leveraged banks and the over-leveraged insurance companies, which are all loaded with treasuries and bonds. And now you point to those guys that did it to us. Oh my gosh, how could they do it to us? And everyone will get behind the new system because everything blows up.
In a recent discussion, Andy Schectman voiced concerns about the US dollar being utilized as a tool for imposing sanctions, emphasizing the potential repercussions of weaponizing it. He cautioned against the risk of losing reserve status and causing a fracture in global unity towards the United States. Meanwhile, Whitney Webb shed light on challenges facing the U.S. economy, such as threats to the petrodollar system and the nation's status as the global reserve currency. Both speakers hinted at an imminent transition towards central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, as a potential solution, stressing the importance of being prepared and informed amidst upcoming economic transformations. So, stay tuned and watch this video until the end for more insights.
Yeah, so I think essentially what's happening now is that we're seeing efforts to sort of kick the can down the road until the solution they want to offer people when this crisis really kicks off. Because as I'm sure your audience knows, a lot of, what's coming is essentially inevitable just because of the nature of a debt-based monetary system and a lot of the insane monetary policy that followed the 2008 economic crisis. There's a lot of stuff that eventually, and also, the U.S. government debt. I mean, there's so many issues coming to a head.
I believe, look, Janet Yellen made a comment not too long ago saying that the dollar is used as a tool for policy decision. And what the dollar is a tool of sanctions. And she knows very well that by weaponizing the dollar, the consequences are real. And I keep telling everyone, how many times have I said Jared Bernstein wants to lose the reserve status, the lead economic advisor to the U.S. government? So what do you do to lose the reserve status? Well, you weaponize the dollar, you sign an executive order to go green, the linchpin of the dollar hegemony. And by weaponizing the dollar and doing it in a way that is wholly hypocritical, the way the rest of the world would view it, is enough to light the fuse. And then you destabilize this country for everyone to see, not just us here who are disturbed by what we see around us, but the rest of the world. That's not lost on them. And they say, what the hell has happened to that country?
For the U.S. economy right now. And then you have major challenges, for example, that are on picking up with increasing speed, challenges to the petrodollar system or the status of the U.S. as a global reserve currency, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of compounding problems. I would argue that there's going to be an effort to kick the can down the road until they can offer their quote unquote solution, which I think is pretty clear going to be some sort of precursor to the CBDC or the CBDC itself. And I think they have more infrastructure to put in place before they want that to happen. I think people should essentially consider this crisis is very real. Now is the time to prepare because there is a lull, but it is a planned lull. And after the lull is going to come a planned controlled demolition. So I guess the model people can look to for this has actually already been implemented in Russia. So of course, Russia's central bank is working on a CBDC, but there's also the Spur coin that was launched by Sberbank, which I believe is Russia's biggest bank. I think the Russian government is the majority owner of Sberbank, but the guy that runs Sberbank, Herman Graf, is a devoted, what would you call him? Like a devoted follower of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, very much pushing for, the use of biometrics as payments and a lot of this other stuff that sort of gets referred to as, a coming technocracy or the rollout of the fourth industrial revolution. And so it's very likely that JP Morgan is positioning itself to sort of be that equivalent in the United States. For example, you've already have them in the past few weeks openly push for mass adoption of biometric payments. They're going to start making it available to their clients, paying with your face, paying with your palm. Of course, Amazon is attempting to roll these types of payment methods out as well. And then more recently, you have Jamie Dimon in the past couple of days saying that private land, private property should be seized by the government for the purpose of developing so-called clean energy for climate change. And JP Morgan, after any big consolidation move, is definitely one of the too big to fail banks that the federal government will move to protect at all costs. And I think Dimon's very aware of that. And essentially what will happen, I think, is, JP Morgan saying now we're rolling out this feature where you can voluntarily pay with your face or your fingerprints or a palm scan. But what happens when JP Morgan says, well, actually, we've decided for reason X, Y, and Z that this is the only way you'll be allowed to pay from now on. You give a bank like JP Morgan all that power, it's not going to be hard for them to do.
And it makes it much easier for them to unite against a country that's lost its bearings, that is no longer the beacon of truth and liberty and justice and freedom when there are questions if there's a two-tiered status of justice and open borders and the lawlessness and the money printing and the wokeness and all of the things that this country is literally, our culture has been whitewashed. I think it makes it much easier for them to pull this trigger. So I do think that's how you do it. And that falls right into the hands of the number 2 advisor, Lael Brainerd, modern monetary theorist, ran point for FedNow, helped develop the CBDC with MIT that Biden fast-tracked by executive order. And so when you talk about could this be done, Richard Russell, God bless his soul, always said the Fed has 2 choices. This was 20 years ago, inflate or die. And he meant it. Well, here we are. Look, in 2008, the national debt was $17 trillion. We've doubled it since then. We're in a way worse position than we ever were then. So what is their options? Inflate, default. And that's what we've been seeing. Should we raise rates? Should we not raise rates? Should we pivot? Because if you go too high, the market blows up. Everything blows up. If you inflate, well, then ultimately it leads to much higher inflation and higher rates. Everything blows up. We're at that point where we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. So how about option 3, find a villain? And that villain would be those countries that pulled the plug on the dollar and its hegemony. Well, geez, they were incentivized through sanctions and through the threat of sanctions and through the admission that, hey, we're going green. We don't need you anymore. We don't need the petrodollar anymore. So do I think that they could do it? Yeah, because in that moment, as I've said on your show 100 times or more, when the countries around the world says, look, we don't want your debt anymore, you're adding $1 trillion every 100 days. I mean, come on. Every 100 days, we're adding $1 trillion, and $1 trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. Every 100 days, we're adding $1 trillion. We're a country that has lost its bearings. And if you're not on our side, we're going to sanction you. And not just sanction you like we did Iran, but we're going to confiscate your assets to fund our agenda. Even if you don't align with it ideologically, that's too bad. And so everything we have done, as Bill says, I don't think it is too stupid to be stupid. Therefore, to me, there is a high probability. And again, this is where there's a fine line about the size of a piece of dental floss between conspiracy and reality. Could this be conspiracy? It sure sounds like it. To someone who hasn't thought about any of this stuff, they'd say, oh, he's full of crap. That could never happen. But really? I mean, look at what we're doing. We are incentivizing the world to run away from us. We are incentivizing the world to find a new standard. And then, if this country was united and had its act together like we did when we were kids and our parents were running the show, the adults in the room, yeah, maybe we could pull ourselves out of this nosedive. But I wonder if we're too far down the road to do that. So, yes, I think it is very, very likely intended. Hate to say it, but if I'm being completely honest, I think there's a greater chance that this is intended than not, because now you find a villain, and when they dump the dollars and interest rates spike to high heaven, not only do you blow up the stock market, the bond market, the real estate market, but you blow up the over-leveraged banks and the over-leveraged insurance companies, which are all loaded with treasuries and bonds. And now you point to those guys that did it to us. Oh my gosh, how could they do it to us? And everyone will get behind the new system because everything blows up. Either you take the new system, which is modern monetary theory, or you starve to death. And that's how you get people who would never take it. That's how you get them to begrudgingly and reluctantly acquiesce. Either that or starve. So yeah.
We're grateful to have you join us for this enlightening discussion with Andy Schectman and Whitney Webb. We trust that their insights on the US dollar, global economic challenges, and the shift towards central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, have sparked contemplation and enriched your understanding. Keeping abreast of these crucial matters is vital for navigating the intricate landscape of finance. If you found value in this video, we encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content on economics, finance, and current affairs. Your engagement and support mean the world to us. Keep delving into new ideas, stay curious, and remain prepared for the transformations on the horizon. Until next time, take care and stay tuned for our upcoming videos.